Hey everybody, welcome to another SC Review Show. I've got our first time guest and review content creator here today. I've got Michael from LiveWell. What's up, Michael?
Hey, how you doing? Glad to be here.
Also a co-reviewer, we have Dali. What's up, Dali?
Life is good.
Nice. And Michael, want to give a little background on yourself?
So I guess I came into SE, was it November, December, about 5 months ago. Found it through watching Anthony's videos and, really liked it. So Anthony got me onto the Discord server, and that's where I started practicing. And then I met Dali and started learning from Dali and become a bit of an addict, actually. It's been really enjoyable. So been doing a few videos and really enjoy, applying what I've learned just in everyday conversations with people. It's been pretty cool.
Sweet. Yeah, and you looks like you've got quite a setup there with the green screen and everything. It looks really nice.
Yeah, I have got into it a bit. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
love it. All right, so cool. Want to give background on which video we're doing today and who you were talking to and what's it about?
Yeah, so I met Shan on the Discord server, and she had a claim about everyone who should get the COVID vaccine. So thought this is, it's a timely topic. It's in the news at the moment everywhere, Australia, around the world. So I thought, let's see if we can record it. And she agreed graciously to record it. So now we've got that. I've put it onto the channel, and it'd be good to get some feedback on it to see opportunities to improve, what you liked, what you think I can work on would be good.
All right, cool. Sounds good. Let's get into the video.
Well, it's good to talk to you again. This is the first time I've seen you.
Yeah,
we did a voice chat last time. Yeah. And thank you for doing this conversation with me, record it, because I really appreciate it. I think it would be really good to do this one, and think it would be really beneficial for other people, given it's a lively topic at the moment. So thank you for doing that.
My pleasure. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. So the claim, could you maybe summarize for me again what the claim was, just briefly? It's from memory, everyone who should get the vaccine. Was that what it was?
Yeah, my claim is everyone who can get a COVID vaccine could get one.
Everyone who can get a COVID vaccine should get one.
And when I say can, I mean in terms of, there are some people you can't have one for health reasons.
Yeah, that was the next question is, what are the limits with this? So could you help me to understand who's in, who's out in terms of this? Who are the people that can get it? Who are the people that can't?
So for me, the only people who shouldn't get one are people who, for some reason to do with their health, for them it would be unwise. There are some people who have a tendency to have very severe reactions to vaccines, allergic reactions, and those people, if you're liable to get an anaphylactic shock, then obviously it's probably better if you don't. And then there are people who are just too old and frail, whose bodies are not able to cope. But I mean, you've really got to be extremely old and extremely frail before that's the case.
Okay.
And then there are people who have weakened immune systems, who are immunocompromised for some reason. They either shouldn't get one, or there's no point in them getting one because their immune system won't react anyway.
Right. Okay. Frail. Okay. So what I'm hearing there is anyone that would be unwise to because of reactions that could cause harm, anaphylactic shock, people that are very old, that are frail, so their bodies wouldn't be able to cope with it, for example. People with immune systems that are in trouble because the vaccine wouldn't operate effectively anyway. Is there anyone else within the scope of this? Younger people, or in terms of age?
At the moment, there are, as far as I know, there are no vaccines yet which have been tested sufficiently that they can be used on children.
Okay.
So obviously they're currently excluded anyway. But at some point they won't be anymore. You know, once the studies have been completed, then
Okay.
they'll be good to go.
Okay. All right. So generally speaking, people outside of those exceptions are part of this claim. And then COVID vaccine. Could you help me to understand what's in and what's out in terms of a COVID vaccine?
Sure.
So with this talk, it's quite a lengthy one. It goes for over an hour and a half. So what I've done, just to be helpful, it's up to you how you want to go with it. But there's some asterisks as we go along of key points that relate to SE moments. The next, I think it's 10 minutes or so, are just clarifying the claim, and then the next one starts at the 14:04 minute mark.
14.
Yeah. So if you like, that's one way you could approach it. You could just look at the asterisks and then jump to the next part and miss out on the ones that don't have the asterisks, so that you're just to keep to your time limits for your review show. Otherwise, we'd be probably here for like two and a half hours, because it was a pretty long one.
Indeed.
So,
I enjoyed the whole thing when I listened to it. There wasn't any parts that I wanted to cut out, but yeah, we have to.
Yeah, we'll be here all day. So around 21 minutes, we'll then skip to 30 minutes for a recap of reasons. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So the next one would be 14:04. It's talking about who's in, who's out in terms of countries. And then there's a recap. So the 10 minutes that you're going to miss out on here is sort of summarized back anyway, so you can get a sense of what was discussed.
Okay.
Now, these phases, does every country follow that process before they release a vaccine?
I can't answer that for you. As far as I'm aware, all developed countries do.
Okay. So if there were countries...
She's very open and honest. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Countries...
Under the SE Discord server, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense now.
That didn't follow that process, that would be excluded from your claim of everyone who can get a COVID vaccine should get one?
Yes. Well, it depends on the severity of the illness that you're trying to prevent, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, for example, in Russia, apparently people started to receive the vaccine after phase 2.
Yeah.
Which is after this small body of people have been have volunteered, and now, as far as I remember, now that vaccine has also undergone phase 3, completed phase 3, which is why the EU, for example, are now putting it through the regulatory process, because now they're happy that they've got all the data. But whether or not you would agree to have a vaccine after only phase 2 would depend upon how deadly the disease was that you were trying not to get. You know, I mean, if it was the case that if you got a particular disease, your chances of dying were 80%.
Yeah,
I would be tempted to get the vaccine after phase 2, but you know, that would be my decision.
Yeah, yeah, okay. For the purpose of exploring this claim, would you feel comfortable if we excluded those countries that didn't follow these phases when we're looking at your confidence level on the claim?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we can put that aside. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So we're sticking to countries that follow these phases. This would be considered best practice.
It's the pharmaceutical companies that put things through the phases.
Okay.
And then it's the countries that have the regulatory processes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So it has to be the case that the drug has undergone all the phases, and that the country in question that you happen to be living in has a regulatory process that's adequate.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of the regulatory process, are they all, in your view, vigorous? Like, would you distinguish between, like, I think I heard you mention before, developed countries and developing countries? Would you have more confidence in a developed country's regulatory process than a developing country? Is there anything that you would exclude from this claim?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about the regulatory processes in countries all over the world to be able to answer that, but I mean, I know from my father, who is a pharmacist, who used to be involved in drug development when he was of working age. I've heard lots of stories from him when he's come back from inspecting regulatory processes in other countries, in developing countries. Some of the stories I've heard would make me definitely pause before.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't go into details, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So no, I mean, let's stick with developed countries and good regulatory processes.
Yes. Okay. So,
are we still in the right spot, or should we move forward?
I think we're still there. So up to, what time are we at the moment? Up to 1944.
1944.
Yeah. What time are we at?
Okay, we're at 1750.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right. Australia, US, Britain all come within the umbrella of that. So
EU. Yeah,
EU,
absolutely.
yeah. Okay. So I've got a good sense of the claim, I think. Good to get a good sense of the range of people that are included in the claim. Now, in terms of COVID vaccines, we're talking about those that have gone through this process, and we're talking about those that go through a credible regulatory process. Are there 3 or 4 top ones that come to mind we should be looking at? What's your thought on that?
You're talking about top vaccines, or?
Yeah. In Australia, I think we've got 3. I know we've got Pfizer, we've got
AstraZeneca.
Yeah, AstraZeneca. I'm not sure that if there's a third one or what the third one is. Do you have like are there 4 that you think you see are pretty much in these developed countries being approved?
I mean, things are changing so fast that it's hard to keep track of what's currently available. I mean, as far as I remember, the Johnson & Johnson one is now available in the US.
Okay.
And then this one that I think the company's of this very small company. I think it's called Medina.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
I think it's called, yeah.
I saw a meme where it's like the 4 Harry Potter houses, but it's the 4 vaccines.
All right. Yeah.
4 yes.
4 vaccine companies. Yeah.
Okay. And what was the other one?
AstraZeneca.
Zeneca. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've heard of those 3. I'm isolated because we're at the bottom end of the planet here in Australia, but I've heard of Pfizer, Medina, and AstraZeneca. Johnson & Johnson is obviously a huge company, but I wasn't aware that they had a vaccine, so excuse my ignorance. Okay, but therefore, that would certainly come within the ambit of that, provided they're following the rigorous process and getting the regulatory approval in the developed countries. Okay. Where is your confidence level then, Shan, that people within the limits that we've discussed should be getting a COVID vaccine?
I would say at least 95%.
Okay. 95%? Cool. My next question then is, have you always had this confidence level, or is this something recently developed? Where is it?
For as long as I've thought about this issue, probably ever since the anti-vax movement became so prominent.
Okay.
I've always had when I've thought about it, I've always had a very high confidence level that vaccines are a good thing.
Yeah.
As far as COVID is concerned.
So that was her default, original position based on this other scandal of like vaccines causing autisms. That's where she's coming from. So she already has a positive affect towards vaccines. So now we're talking about this new thing, new vaccines, and that's where it's starting. All right.
Yeah, and it's an added driver.
Yeah.
Ever since I've known that it was possible to vaccinate, I've had a very high confidence level that it's very important that people are vaccinated. Yes. I don't know whether that answers your question.
Yeah, it gives me a sense of what drove you to thinking about the confidence level. Yeah, that's good. I guess the next question I have is, what are your main reasons that are propping you up so high at 95%?
So there are probably 3 reasons.
Okay.
Do we want to skip to the summary?
Yeah, we can do. So that's at 30:43, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe I could just do a quick recap because there was a lot there. I'm glad I
Yeah, sorry about
notes.
that.
Yeah. Well, no, it's fantastic. I really want to. It helps me to get a really good insight into it, and I'm glad I'm taking notes because my memory would never have served me as well to remember what was covered there. So I'll just do a quick recap. So 3 main reasons I heard. The first one was you yourself, you're a computational linguist. You've spent a lot of time in science department. You have good understanding of the scientific methods. You have a lot of respect for the scientific method. It boils down to what I was hearing was, correct me if I'm summarizing this in the wrong way, but it boils down to scientific method that is a reliable way to discover what's true, our best version of that. And computational linguist, and you said your education. Do you mind just sharing with me what background you have with education? What did you do that got you those insights?
My first degree was actually a modern languages degree. So I studied German and French and linguistics.
Yep. Okay.
Then I did a teacher training qualification. Then I I decided to change direction. So I did a master's in cognitive science, which is sort of closely related to artificial intelligence, but with more of a leaning towards things like psychology and linguistics.
Okay.
So, that's where I learned how to use the scientific method.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then I worked for IBM in what was the precursor to programs like Siri, speech to text.
Yeah.
Thing. Yeah. And then I did a PhD in cognitive science.
Wow.
Using artificial neural networks, which is artificial neural networks is what is behind a lot of the sort of AI type stuff that people use every day on their phones and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so
well, that sounds like, sorry, go ahead.
Artificial neural networks for doing research into how people learn language. That's what I was using it for.
I was just going to say, that sounds like a lifetime of research with that education. That's a long haul. So
yeah.
Okay.
I guess it was so long to change direction, but yeah, I mean, that's what's so great about having education that spans different areas is that you have quite a broad insight into a whole variety of different sorts of ways of thinking,
Okay. All right. And then the second reason that I was hearing that gives you this confidence is both your parents were pharmacists. Your father spent his working life in drug research, whether that be at universities or pharmaceutical companies. And he worked for a bit of time with the Safety Medicine Committee in the UK. I hope I got that right.
Safety of medicines,
yeah. But basically, you were exposed to what I was hearing is that you were exposed to the nature of the process behind getting drugs approved due to that's your father's life work, and so that okay, I get that.
Can I just interrupt you there?
Yeah, you go ahead.
I just want to add that these regulatory bodies, like what used to be called Safety of Medicines when my father was doing it, they got put in place after that thalidomide scandal, where mothers were given a drug to, I think it was to prevent nausea during pregnancy.
I think it was, it might have been that, and anxiety, to relieve anxiety.
I'm not sure. I know it was something to do with pregnancy.
Yeah.
And the mothers who were given thalidomide subsequently had babies who were missing limbs.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that happening, that was what caused developed countries to put in place these regulatory bodies.
Ah, that's interesting. Okay.
So people who worry about side effects of drugs and vaccines often mention thalidomide.
Mm.
But in fact, the chances of something like that happening now are slim because of the fact that we now have these regulatory processes.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's probably one thing that that people would wonder about, and whether it might be a generation of fear amongst some groups. So okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third reason, of course, was the experience with your son, which would have been horrendous, going through cancer, having your son, and then you worrying constantly that you might be bringing home some infection that could kill him, because his immune system is so low during that period of time. Okay, so I've got a sense of those reasons. They give you a high confidence level that everyone should, within the limits that we've discussed, get the vaccine. What would be the arguments that you've heard for those that oppose getting the COVID vaccine? What do you think the main ones are that you've heard?
For the COVID vaccine, I've heard people often say that.
So this goes for a fair bit. Might be helpful to jump to a summary recap of the three main arguments against. But what do you think?
That's fine.
I can't think of any others. I think those are the main ones, probably.
So we've got the time. People are concerned that it normally takes 10 years. It appears to be speeded up. They think they're cutting corners. So it's not safe, I guess, is the fear there. Yeah, not safe. Okay. Second one was, some people believe that it's better to build natural immunity than to have your immunity.
That's what they call it. Yeah.
That's what they call it, natural immunity. Okay.
Something like that.
Okay.
Indeed.
Oh, I've lost sound.
Sorry for me. Sorry. Wouldn't it be nice if we just had that? You wouldn't have to deal with vaccines at all, or any illness.
Yeah, indeed. I really enjoy this one because it's long form SE. When you're asking questions, you're asking for as long a list of reasons as she wants to give, as opposed to asking for the best one, which is, if we're trying to shoot for 20 minutes, we have to ask for the one best one, things like that. And I really appreciate when I see long form SE. Thanks.
Yeah. And it's great when you're talking with someone who really knows what they're talking about. You just kind of get a lesson the whole time. It's like you're just just in a class learning. It's nice.
Yeah. And then the third one, I'm not sure how the third one is different, but maybe it was just I'll flesh it out and see what you say.
Yes, repeat it back to me, and I'll.
Yeah, vaccines. Vaccine influenced immunity, or vaccine something immunity, is not the real thing. I think it's sort of the same as number two, but maybe
it's the same. Maybe it's the same.
Yeah. So it's all about whether the vaccine immunity isn't as effective as a natural body building immunity.
What people think.
That's what they think. Yeah. Okay. So that could be the second one. And then the third one is some conspiracy theory about COVID being made up. And then there's some, I heard you say money. You've heard of people talking about companies making money out of it or something like that. But it could be
companies and governments and individuals making money out of the vaccines.
Okay.
And I've just thought of something else. People worry a lot about long-term side effects and short-term side effects, actually. People think that maybe in 10 or 20 years' time, you might get some hideous disease because you've had this vaccine.
Yeah. So that might tie in with number one, but it could be different. So number one was process speeded up, normally takes 10 years. It's only 1 year, not safe.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that could be tied in with number one, yeah.
Okay. Let's have a look at these individually then. So let's start with the first one. So
still good to keep going here.
Yeah, I think just jump over to 4349. This is just a summary recap, so we can just cut it a bit short. 4349, and that goes for like a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Fine. So people were saying me.
Yeah. Well, if we go back to phase 2, you're talking about expanding from 40 people to 40,000 people to get a statistically valid sample. I'd imagine in the normal sort of process that would be quite difficult to get 40,000.
It takes a long time to get enough people normally.
Okay. And of course, there's a big movement here, so lots of people volunteer. Okay. So quick recap. Sorry, was there another one? Or was that?
Not that I can think of.
No. Okay. So we've got 5 reasons why we discount that concern. The first one is that normally things go on a waiting list, and so there's a long order of drugs waiting to go through these processes and be tested. So this one,
usually when you're talking with someone individually, it's hard to keep track of like the map of the argument, which I try to simulate using Post-it notes when I'm out in doing it IRL. But now that we're doing it mostly on Zoom, I think it would be a good idea to try to keep track of it somehow visually, the argument and where we are and which reason we're boosting up or which one we're like trying to rebut or what we're talking about. It just helps me as well.
Yeah, I saw someone on Discord writing on eggshells. Harry, he uses Jamboard. Have you seen that?
No.
Yeah, Jamboard gives a great visualization with sticky notes on the screen. So I've played around with it. I'm not confident with it yet, but I'd like to try. It's got its pros and cons. You've got to be fluent with it, but that's helpful. Yeah.
I'll look into that. Yeah. My favorite go-to is, at least for, on the computer, is Kialo, but it may not be that visual. But maybe we'll do another stream where we kind of compare and contrast the different ways of mapping arguments. Yeah.
And obviously,
I have tried the heck out of doing that with you, and I have not been able to adapt myself to writing things down or typing things down while I'm in the thing for notes. If you bring those things in, maybe I can learn. I think it would be an advantage. I just haven't been able to.
There's a great
multi-track like that.
Yeah, it is. You have to kind of do both at the same time and keep track. There was a great argument mapping course I took by Tim Van Gelder. He's kind of an applied epistemology guy, and that really made things very clear to me how it works. And so I kind of try to recreate what he recommends to do using Post-it notes, which is pretty easy.
Would it be fair for us to review Tim Van Gelder's thing? Would that be okay for copyright, or is that something he's selling?
It is a course he's selling, but maybe just a little bit of it. Maybe he does have free things available to check out.
Let's talk about this outside. I don't need to take up review time for that.
Okay,
go ahead.
The harm that it's causing across the globe was prioritized and put ahead. The second thing I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, there's rolling reviews. So information is fed to committees as it's available. So there's less waiting in the decision-making process. The overlapping of phases was the third thing I heard there, which expedites the process. Then in relation to, you used the example of mRNA and Pfizer, and you talked a bit about there that this isn't just something that they've started afresh. They've been researching coronaviruses for a long time.
Coronaviruses, and no, that's actually true. I mean, I read recently that because coronaviruses normally just produce things like colds. There are a whole variety of coronaviruses that normally just cause minor symptoms. And it would be great if there was a vaccine against the common cold, because we wouldn't lose so many days at work and that sort of thing. So it's been being researched for ages, but there's coronavirus research that's been ongoing, and there's been mRNA vaccine research that's been ongoing for quite a long time.
Okay. So we've got coronavirus research, mRNA vaccine research. They've been ongoing for a long time, but prioritized because of the urgency of this.
So there was all this information already available, as you know, because of the previous research. Yeah.
A base of information already available.
Yeah.
And then we had so many people volunteer, so it made it easy to get the people needed for the testing on those larger
about a statistically valid sample, exactly.
Okay. So that would explain why just speeding up the process doesn't necessarily mean it's unsafe. Okay. I'm just wondering, what would be our main reason for having confidence that there's not necessarily going to be any side effects from this, even though it's okay to speed up the process, given that we haven't had enough time to see what happens with it?
Yeah.
So here she explores her main reasons for discarding concern over side effects, but I give a summary if you jump to 49.20.
I want to comment that oftentimes asking the good neutral question that actually relates to their thing is the long way. The sentence feels like a paragraph.
Yeah. Here we go. Summary.
There is, correct me if anything's wrong, if I've misunderstood. The first thing that gives you confidence that any risk of this would be so minor compared to the cost that it could possibly compare and shape up against is the fact that when the scientists are manufacturing these vaccines, they have a lot of experience with the chemicals that are being used in the vaccines, the shape, the structure.
Not necessarily the particular chemical, but I mean, there are families of chemicals. It's not like every chemical is entirely different from every other chemical.
Yeah. And that might just be me not being a scientist, not using the language right there, but generally speaking, the chemical structure or the families of chemicals, as you put it, they have a good idea of the effect it's likely to have in the body because they work with those. Is that a fair summary? They work with those.
Yeah, and also these days, of course, they have very sophisticated imaging software they use. And they also, if we're looking at drugs in 3D, and they also have, databases of information about how chemicals work and, side effects and that sort of thing.
Okay. All right. So that makes sense to me. And then the second thing I heard there was that the contents that go into the vaccine, they're used repeatedly in vaccines. Could you give me a sense of what's included in these vaccines? Do you...
I'm not
getting very detailed. Great.
An expert, but from what I've read, saline, salt water, sterile salt water, a preservative is often included. Then sometimes they add something to help with the process of getting the active ingredient sometimes needs a bit of help to do what it needs to do. And so sometimes you'll put in a chemical that will help with that.
Okay.
Sometimes you need something which will stabilize the product in some way, things like that. But you're not going to put anything in that doesn't have to be in there. Why would you? It's too risky to, you're not going to just stick a whole load of stuff in a vaccine that doesn't have to be there.
And is there, I think, importantly, what might be of concern to some people, I'm not saying this is true, but is there a product that's uniquely going into these vaccines that hasn't been worked with before?
I can't give you 100% answer to that, I'm afraid. I don't know.
Okay. If you were to discover that there was, would that reduce your confidence at all?
I would say not, because I have a high degree of confidence in the process.
Yeah.
It would depend upon what it was that was new.
Yeah.
Some people worry, for example, that these mRNA vaccines, which are a new thing, they talk about them going into your DNA. They say, this is a genetic, this is modifying your genes, which is not true. And there are good reasons for believing that's not true, to do with how RNA functions.
could you give me a quick summary so that I think that would be important for people to hear that. What's the main reason for not sharing the concern? Jump there, Reid? Do you want to jump to the summary? She goes on with the reasons and then give a summary recap at 55, 55?
55, 55.
Or you can read about it.
So what I'm hearing here is it's a consensus amongst the specialized experts here that the mRNA is not going to change people's genes.
Exactly.
This might not be the most interesting SE review show because it seems to be really like, boilerplate SE and just going through the method, and it seems to be going really great so far.
Yeah, this is excellent and almost to the point of unchallenging. So Michael, question for you. Did you have any trouble during this event keeping your emotions and not reacting hostilely to her claim?
No, I think the trouble goes the other way. So I already had a bias towards her view, but we discussed that at the end. So I was really trying my best to put that aside and hear her out and then challenge where I could. As far as emotions, when she talked about her son having cancer, we've skipped over that bit because it was a fair bit. I actually got emotional then. I was trying my best not to get emotional because it was very touching. So that was difficult getting through that bit. For me, it got through it.
For everybody else, that's well worth going and reviewing if you're willing to hang on with a good human story. Go for it.
Yeah. There's one moment in there, I'll check in with you guys when we get to it, where I think I'm leading the witness, so to speak. So been guilty of that a few times, but we'll just see how it goes. But
okay, we'll keep going.
Go ahead.
It's a temporary substance to bring about a proper immune response, to create the antibodies.
So to begin the immune response, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like starting a car or something,
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then if we look at the second one, which was about, let me go back to my notes, the natural immunity over maybe maybe we can jump to 10003. 100, go back. Yeah, just 10000 if you like.
Okay, gotcha.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go
on. So what I'm hearing is we have examples where with some diseases, measles being one of them, if we don't get vaccinated, we're actually worse off with our immune system by catching the disease.
Yes, it actually, it takes a while for a child's immune system to get back to a healthy level after you've had measles.
Okay.
That's not true of all childhood diseases, but it is true of that one.
Okay. And to the best, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Well, we're so polite, aren't we? Go ahead.
We both got light bulbs going off at the same time. That's often the problem. So on the other side of the coin, to the best of our knowledge, we don't know of any examples where natural immunity from catching a disease actually gives us a better immune system than getting vaccinated against the disease.
I wouldn't be prepared to nail my colours to the mast on that one. I don't know if that's true.
Okay, just to the best of our knowledge. Yeah.
I wouldn't even like to say that.
Okay.
I would say that in a lot of cases, having a vaccine is going to be better than having the disease because of there's all sorts of considerations. There's there's the fact that having mumps can cause male children to become sterile as adults, for example.
Right. Yeah.
There's the fact that German measles is not dangerous for the child, but it's dangerous if the child has it and passes it to a pregnant woman.
Okay.
Because the child of the pregnant woman can then have hearing and sight issues. So there's all sorts of reasons why having vaccines are better than having diseases,
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm hearing there is we have lots of examples where the vaccine is better than getting actual disease because of complications that can flow from catching the disease. Not saying this is true, hypothetically speaking. If you were to discover that there were examples where getting the vaccine actually left our immune system worse off than getting the disease naturally, would that reduce your confidence on this claim at all?
Yes, it would.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, it would. I mean, if COVID were not deadly in some people, then my claim would not stand necessarily, because I think then it would be up to people to decide whether they wanted to have it or not. But it's the fact that it's so deadly in a portion of people that makes my claim so important to me, you know?
Yeah. One thing I learned from you in this conversation and our past conversation, and I didn't realize this, I don't know why I didn't put my mind to it. You mentioned the idea that I posed a hypothetical. Hypothetically speaking, let's say a young person who thinks that they're in, say, a low risk percentage of the population, thinking to themselves, well, if I get it, it's not really going to hurt me anyway. Given that everyone can be vaccinated anyway, what's the point in me getting vaccinated, because everyone else who really needs it is going to...
I'll put that up, keeping Rappaport's rules. We rarely do this, or I rarely see this in SC conversations. Like, it's like the third rule or something in Rappaport's rules, like mentioning what you've learned before you even think about putting any type of, counter argument or anything. So that was interesting to see, but I rarely see that. So that was nice to see.
Is that usually covered by repeating back?
Not really. You can repeat back and not figure out, not say what you learned, but saying you learned,
okay.
Saying you learned something is something extra. That's nice to do.
Yeah, good. Yes. Yeah. If I've learned a thing, especially if I've learned a new thing, if I've discovered a new thing from what they've told me, or if it at all convinces me, I should highlight that. That's a big bonus.
Yeah.
I should be willing to acknowledge all of those things.
Although it depends on what they say. We don't want to say, like, we learned this new concept and, like, therefore that implies we now hold it to be true ourselves. Maybe we need to be careful with, it needs to be obvious that it is true and, with good reason to believe before we say that. But
I learned that your model of weather prediction has this kinds of a such and such. I haven't asserted that their model is correct, but I might be able to reflect back that I've understood what they've said or learned their position.
Or just learned that this reason exists. Maybe not necessarily we agree with it, but we've learned a new reason that exists, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Going to get vaccinated. But you mentioned before about, people that got low immune systems, like your son during that stage of his illness. I thought, that was a really good point, because I hadn't put my mind to that. So not everyone can get vaccinated if they have a low immune system. Then is that what I'm hearing? Was I hearing that correctly? If they've got a very low immune system and they're vulnerable, then they can't get vaccinated, so they are exposed?
It probably depends upon the individual case. I mean, for example, in my son's case, his body was at that time not producing immune reactions to things. Because of the way some of these drugs work.
Yeah.
So this goes on for a few minutes, maybe jump to 105.50. Yeah. Since our last talk, there have been some recent events in the news. We've got one of the vaccines put on hold. I think in Scandinavia, in the UK, has it been suspended, the vaccination, or is it just Scandinavia?
I don't think it's been suspended in the UK. I do remember reading yesterday about it being suspended in some places. I think it was the AstraZeneca one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that comes to mind. In Australia, it hasn't been suspended. So the question I have on my mind is, if I'm putting my trust in the experts, how reliable is that process if we have experts on one side of the world saying we should suspend it as a caution, yet experts on this side of the world are saying we don't need to suspend it as a precautionary measure. Is there
just body language that's obvious there? Interesting.
What are your thoughts on that? Is there different criteria being applied that brings them to a different decision on the other side of the world? What's happening?
Well, my question would be, is it actually the experts who are making the decision, or is it politicians who are making the decision?
Quick point there. That's where, on reflecting, I'm leading. Normally, I don't suggest any possible answers. I just leave it so they can do the critical thinking. In this case, I feel like it was okay because Shan is definitely independent and not influenced by anything I say. She corrects me if I make mistakes. She's quite forward, and I think it comes through from here that it hasn't inhibited her own critical thinking. Like, she gets across her response, but I leave that feedback for you guys because that's one of the things that I thought, maybe I shouldn't have led there.
I think that kind of leading, it is good for the critical thinking exercise part. And trying to get to a 0, I don't care so much. I think it's more about rapport. And as long as you're demonstrating critical thinking in the process, we don't have to be 100% that way. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So if someone is talking about a claim and they have a lot of reasons for, and you ask them, could you give reasons against, and they give a bunch, I guess it's then okay to add more reasons against that you've heard. You don't have to let them know that if it's something you disagree with and you have a bunch more reasons against, just make it obvious and more neutral that these are some things I've heard, or is that lying if it's not merely things you've heard, but something you agree with and that is an alternate reasoning?
Yeah, I think I turned it around and phrased it as a question. What are your thoughts at the end of it? So wasn't making it as though that's the case. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, whether I disagree or not, I think I can reflect the alternatives. As long as rapport isn't challenged by even the bringing up. In some conversations, it's so tough that even rehashing the alternatives can be triggering.
Yeah. So and we rarely see people who are into SE talking with each other. So maybe if that's then this seems to be this type of situation. So if it does turn into that and you do disagree, you both agree with this thing, but if it comes into a situation where they both disagree, just go into like an SE / counter argument offering thing where we're still kind of thinking of it in terms of a collaboration. We're just trying to get all the reasons on the table for and against.
Yeah.
And that would be interesting to see happen more often. Maybe on the SE Discord we can do that more. All right, keep going.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Now, I mean, if it's politicians making the decision, then one can imagine why they might decide to suspend the vaccine until it becomes clear whether this blood clotting is a result of the vaccine or not. You can see why they would not want to risk losing public support.
Yeah.
So if it's experts who are deciding it, or at least advising the government in question, then I would say that they're either using different criteria or they're being cautious. I mean, the thing with it, that there was this one nurse who died because of a blood clot subsequent to getting the AstraZeneca vaccine. And from the press releases that I've read, there's a correlation, but not any evidence of causation. So, and there is only this one particular case as well, as far as I'm aware. I could be wrong. Whether we should put our faith in experts, I think yes, because the risk of death from COVID is greater than the risk of death from getting a vaccine. I think one of the things that is a big problem is public understanding of how statistics work.
Yeah.
So people panic when they hear that a nurse has died of something after getting a vaccine, without thinking to themselves, well, what's the alternative? You know, if no one gets vaccine, how many people are going to die? And that to me is the real question. You know, what is it you're measuring risk from the vaccine against? You're not, if you're saying, well, if I get the vaccine, I could die of a blood clot. Okay, let's imagine it were true that was the case. At the moment, we don't know because the information is not available as to whether it was the vaccine was a cause or not. But let's say it was. The number of people that has happened to, you can count on the fingers of one hand. But the number of people who've died of COVID so far is enormous.
Yeah.
And you just have to weigh up in the end. And like I said before, you have to have trust in the process as well, which I do. If there was a serious risk of blood clotting, then it wouldn't have got to this stage.
Yeah.
Because you would have seen it amongst those 40,000 people in phase 3, you'd have seen blood clots, and they didn't. So.
Okay. So what I'm hearing there is,
I don't know if I want to bring this up, but this just comes to mind. Like now you're talking about the systems in general, and in general weighing options. And this reminds me of game theory and like the tragedy of the commons. You know, ideally, you know, you're someone who doesn't have to take the vaccine or get the virus. You just let everybody else do it. But if more people think that way, then that's going to be a problem for, you know, all of us. And it'll be a tragedy of the commons and other things. I need to learn more about game theory and learn all these games, and because that's another interesting lens to view situations through, like big things happening like this through, where it's a bunch of individuals acting in the system. So I don't know how I don't know if it's worthwhile to shift the conversation into that direction for some reason, but that just comes to mind for me. What do you think?
That's a really good insight. As we get to the end, we shift in that direction indirectly. We start talking about mutation, adaptation, being fit for the environment. I think that is similar to game theory in the way that you've brought that up, but may be wrong. I've had discussions with my son about those examples of game theory, and I still can't get my head around them, to be honest. It's quite difficult. I've gone through the scenarios. It's quite complicated. It's like the prisoner. What's the prisoner one?
Prisoner's Dilemma. Yeah.
Prisoner's Dilemma. Yeah.
Sort of thing. Iterated Prisoner's Dilemma. Yeah.
Yeah. My brain doesn't work well when we start talking about stuff like that. So, but it's interesting that you've raised that, because that does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Still going here, or keep going? Go somewhere else.
So we keep going to 1:10:58. Yeah, we're in the middle of a summary recap.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing there is we don't know whether it's politically motivated or if there's different criteria. They're just being cautious. I know in Australia it's a chief medical officer that advises the Prime Minister. Based on that advice, not suspending the program. Not sure.
Right.
Yeah, how those decisions are made in Scandinavia. Okay. The question of mutations. It's natural for viruses. Yeah, here we talk a lot about mutations, so it's probably best to jump to 1:18:42.
Okay.
The herd immunity.
Close enough.
Yeah.
It's non-transmissibility.
We've mentioned herd immunity a few times. Could you help me to understand what is herd immunity, and why is this so important for us to try to achieve herd immunity?
Yeah, it's great seeing so many techniques being used here. There's, and you hear these, you just say these certain words, and it signals that you are, not against her. You're trying to just learn, and it's great for rapport. Love it.
So, if you imagine a population of people represented by little dots on a screen or on a piece of paper, and you've got all these dots, and one of those dots, they're all green, and one of them turns red, and when it turns red, that means that person is infected, right? If all the people around that person, that red dot, none of them have had vaccine and none of them have had COVID, and the chances of that person, that dot, transmitting the disease to the people around him are very high. Right? And then once those people around him or her have got infected, they can transmit it to all the people around them. And so you can imagine the disease like spreads out like wildfire in a non-immune population, yeah? Which is why you get these exponential curves that we've been seeing, where you get a small number of increases in infection rate, and then suddenly it goes like this.
Yes.
And that's why, because it spreads out so fast, because everyone's infecting everybody. But if you imagine, instead of that, you've got, amongst all these green dots, you've got lots of blue dots.
Yeah.
Let's say every second dot is blue rather than green. And you've got one person in the middle who's red, who's infected. And you've got, you can still infect some of the people because they're green, they're not immune, but he can't infect the blue people because they're immune.
Yeah.
So that's going to, and so then only the green people who got infected can spread it. And if half of the people around them have got it, are already immune, they can't spread it to them. And so the rate of spread is much slower.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can see
and
that.
And the more people are
immune,
the more people that are immune, the fewer people it can be transmitted to. And if you've got a population where almost everybody's flu, and you've got one infected person, they may not be able to infect anybody if everyone around them is immune.
Just Sorry, go ahead.
One more sentence. So if my son is over here on the screen, and everyone's blue, and you've got a red person here, there's no path for the disease to get from this infected person to my son. And that's what herd immunity is.
I love that visual that you just gave. It's so helpful because it just paints the picture really well. That was a great explanation. Thank you. And it just brought.
It's not original to me, I have to say, but
okay, yeah, but nevertheless, it was really helpful. So thank you for that. And it just brought something to mind. I'm wondering if we imagine in that example we have nobody vaccinated and the virus spreads so that we've got a lot of dots now that have the virus. Does that scenario, compared with the scenario where the virus is only in a limited number of people because there is herd immunity, does that scenario give more opportunities for mutation, given that there's so many people that have the virus relative to the first scenario?
Yes, it does, because if you think about it, every person that has the vaccine, every person that has the virus is like a mini factory for viruses. And every time a virus or a cell containing the viral information divides, there's another opportunity for a mutation, because that's when mutations occur during cell division.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
It does, and it's making me think, correct me if I'm wrong, this is another, well, with SE, we're not supposed to send messages. We're supposed to keep them to ourselves. But I'll pose this as a question. So if that's the case, then is that even more reason, in your view, why we should be, everyone who can, as we've defined it in the claim, should be getting vaccinated? Because even more so, we now
I've never actually thought of that, but yes.
we reduce the possibility of mutation.
Yeah,
It acts as
absolutely.
a constraint in some way. Yeah. Okay.
It's a good point, actually.
Yeah, good to see that reason come up. Yeah, I was thinking about that myself. Yeah.
Okay. So does that increase your confidence at all?
Yes.
1%? 1%? Yeah.
Well, very many percent to go.
You're at 95. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, one or two of the things that you have said have made me think, okay, I should reduce my confidence a little. Because what's interesting about street epistemology is how it makes you realize where the gaps are in your understanding. So, yeah, so probably on average, I'm still where I was at about 95.
So what I'm hearing is I brought you down and I just brought you up. Okay. Yeah, cool.
That's what it's all about. That's great. Love it.
Okay. I think there was only one more reason to look at, and I've spent so much of your time here. I'm happy to explore it, but if you're happy to...
I'm having fun. Just carry on.
Awesome, cool. And that was the conspiracy theory reason. So we end on a fun one.
All right.
So let me just recap that one again. So COVID was made up. It was made up. Maybe it's not real. Yeah, this goes on. Maybe we can jump to summary recap at 1:32:07.
Okay.
Main reasons for discounting anti-vaccine. Sort of start wrapping it up.
Gotcha.
Then it's the case.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing there, whistleblowing. How likely is it that this could be covered up and you not have someone come out and say we're covering it up?
Yeah,
a bit like the moon landing.
Yeah. Exactly the same idea. I mean, you do get the occasional person saying this is a scam, who is a scientist, but then you don't get other people saying, "Oh yes, I think that too."
Yeah.
It isn't happening, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
The only people who are saying it isn't true, almost the only people, are members of the public who are currently demonstrating on a Saturday.
Okay.
Who aren't actually experts.
Yeah. Well, that only leaves Bill Gates, but we know that he's behind it all, and we don't want to put ourselves in a bad position, so we'll just put that aside. Yeah. Okay. No, thank you for that. I think we've exhausted the topic. We've spent. I didn't even keep track of time, so I don't even know.
No, me neither.
I don't know how long I've been talking about it for.
Wow, nearly 2 hours.
Has it really? Time
maybe
flies.
an hour and a half. Maybe an hour and a half.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, it's certainly fun.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. Yeah,
me too. Yeah,
really fun. Enjoyed it. And I think it's more timely than ever to have discussions about this. Do you have any questions for me?
I don't have a question, but I'd like to say that I really like your style of questioning, and it's always so nice to talk to somebody who is open-minded and will listen and reflect back what you say. And
thank you for that.
Me too.
Yeah, awesome.
Pleasure.
I have to say too, since we started our discussion initially, my confidence level on this was 75%. That we should be getting the vaccine, but having fleshed it out and learned a lot of things, I'm actually up at 95. So I'm sitting.
Oh, right.
Yes. Yeah. So there was a lot that I didn't know, learned a few things. So I thought that was great.
I would actually just like to put in a rider, and that is that, it's possible that not everything I've said is 100% true, because I am not an immunologist, but I do
and
a lot
intellectual
of reading,
humility.
and I'm
still
telling you what I believe to be
awesome.
the case. It's
amazing.
I wouldn't like anyone to sort of point a finger and say, well, that's not true, and that's not true, and that's not true.
Yeah, we can always discover new information that would bring our confidence levels back down again. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
What I found was that it just made the reasoning was sound. So epistemology seemed good for me, gave good explanations about things, and in that sense, it increased my confidence, particularly around the idea about the herd immunity and the idea about mutation.
Okay.
If we can create herd immunity, then we can adapt ourselves, because it seems like evolution is demonstrating to us by, it's demonstrating itself through this virus replicating.
It's really interesting, actually.
Yeah, evolution is demonstrating itself to the point where we are looking at ourselves as not being fit for our environment. And we either adapt. Yeah, and we either adapt or we don't. And so through having this discussion with you, I'm starting to see that vaccination is so important because it's our way of adapting in an evolutionary sense to be fit for our environment to stop.
That's a really good point, actually. Yeah, because I mean, that's one of the things that humans are good at, is technology. And it is a form of evolution, developing new vaccines.
Yeah, mutation. If we adapt, then we're slowing down that mutation. In that sense, we're becoming fitter for our environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So that's been very helpful to me. So thank you for that. Yeah, great discussion.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm really glad I met you, and I look forward to having more SE discussions with you on, the SE Discord server platform.
That would be a lot of fun. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe I could try. We could play all the way around next time, maybe.
Yeah. You interview me. Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Shan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And,
thank you.
Yeah. Catch you again next time. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Very nice. Very nice.
I like it.
Well, I think that's the first SE video review show we've done where it's like, I really don't have anything bad to say. I guess one thing I didn't hear was any conversation about, but explicitly specific disconfirmation criteria. Maybe I missed that, or.
Yeah, normally I use Dali's. Well, I learned it from Dali about, what would increase your confidence, what would decrease you, what could you see that could decrease your confidence. Normally wrap it up with that. I don't know whether I forgot to do that or whether I was thinking, crap, this is nearly 2 hours. We've got to wrap this up. I wasn't sure where I was at with that. Yeah. Yeah.
I think she'd already demonstrated such deep epistemology that provoking it wasn't so much needed. It was okay to skip that one.
Yeah. I found it so enjoyable. It's like to me, this is through doing SE, getting a free education from someone who knows a lot more about something than I do. It was really cool. It was really good. Yeah. Yeah. So there's got to be some things. So yeah, I guess we've gone through them. Leading the witness. I guess that was okay.
Yeah, it was minor, if anything.
Yeah.
It was funny seeing this parallel from the book when they talk about, from the section on moral epistemology, they talk about vaccines and how really the underlying issue for, anti-vaccine ideas is like, what qualities make someone a good mother, like, being a good mother, being a good parent. They're worried about not being that if they give them a vaccine and harm their children. And it seems that kind of an ironic parallel to her. She wanted to be a good parent as well in order to have the vaccine. So that seems like a deeper emotional level to the conversation that could be potentially ripe for more of that.
And by the book, you mean the New Testament, according to Drs. Bogosian and Lindsay.
Yeah, how to have impossible conversations.
How to have impossible conversations, yes.
Yeah, tons of stuff we've heard in this review, in this conversation from there, definitely for sure. And
yeah, that's a good point. So when she outlays her 3 main reasons, I had a thought for a brief moment, should I try and test those? But I think I was thinking at the time, why would I risk rapport by going straight into that when I can go into, what's the arguments against, and let her bring it out? In relation to her being a mother and that emotional reason that she gave, that's a really good avenue to look at, what you just showed me. So thank you. Yeah, that would have been a good one. Maybe another Probably won't do another talk with Shan on that. I'll get her to interview me next time. It's her turn. Yeah. But that was good. Thanks, Reid. Yeah.
Sure. All right. I don't think anybody else in the comments has any questions or was there anything in the comments, Dali, that you saw that people were wondering? Someone asked about what vaccination versus variolation or inoculation.
Yes, which is I think relating to inoculation, which I'm going to assume means intentionally giving somebody an actual disease. Maybe it's like the cowpox versus the smallpox, where you give them a lesser disease that confers an immunity, or give them a vaccine that is a weakened version of the disease, as compared to these mRNA vaccines, which really are only relating to a particular protein. They don't have the rest of the vaccine in it. They're just giving you mRNA to make a particular protein with an adjuvant to get you to build an immunity reaction to that particular protein, which is on the shell. So you can't get COVID from the COVID vaccine. There's not the pathogen is not in it.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Well, anything else, Dali? It was a really great conversation, Michael. Looking forward to seeing more of your conversations, and your general workflow is just talking with people in the SE Discord, or how do you find most of your people?
So I've got to try a couple of things. So there's the old school. I go out to a local university here on the Gold Coast, Griffith Uni, and I just do the face-to-face with random people on the street. So I'm doing that. And then just testing online, like I just did with Shan, thinking about going to some other servers like the Flat Earthers and doing a couple there and recording them. Yeah, so I'm just trying all these different things, just really enjoying it so far. So I'll just keep doing different stuff.
Do you have an iPhone?
Let me know if you need an extra public speaker to help corral, which is a lot like something that we three are part of a team of 9 or 10, I'm forgetting exactly how many, that in about a week and a half, if I remember right, we're going to be doing an event for the American Atheists, an hour and a half seminar on SE.
Workshop.
Yeah, we're going to have a whole bunch of us presenters all teaching exactly the same outline to people in small rooms, so we have a really good instructor to student ratio. So the people you see here plus a good 6 or 7 others are in that team. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah. Do you have an iPhone, Michael, or no?
So I damaged my iPhone a while ago. Having damaged it like 5 times in a row and having to upgrade 5 times, I now switched over to the enemy, and I'm going going with the Android.
Okay. Well, I ask because Clubhouse is another potential place to find people to talk to. I've been doing a bunch of conversations there. That's really cool, and they should have an Android app soon. So be on the lookout for that.
Can you jump onto that with a Mac or an iPad, or it's just only iPhone?
It's only iOS, only iPhone.
Right,
iPad,
gotcha.
That type of thing, as of now, but it should be coming soon to Android.
Okay.
And hopefully Dali and I will be back IRL SEing in the coming month or so. And
we're in the middle of that. When are we starting? Well, how do we know when we're sure? Question.
So be on the lookout for that. All of our info is in the description, channels and stuff. And thanks everyone for watching. Anything else, guys?
Thank you.
No, thanks very much. Thanks for taking the time to review it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure thing. Have a good day. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.